welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Yeshi. Here are the headlines. COVID-19 has taught India to become self-reliant, says Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Protests erupt in Gilgit-Baltistan against rigged assembly polls. And Afghan artists paint on felt aim to revive old traditions amid pandemic. Let's begin the show with 12 BRICS summit held virtually, where the member nations have shown their commitment towards global recovery after the pandemic. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi exuded confidence in India's vaccine production and delivery capabilities in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. Here's a report.
The leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa met for the first time since the outbreak of COVID-19 early this year. The BRICS, which is known as an influential bloc that represents over 3.6 billion people or half of the world's population, have joined hands to fight against COVID-19 pandemic and its economic impacts. In a virtual event hosted by Russian President Vladimir Putin, the BRICS member nations showed commitment to work together in these difficult times. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi conveyed his country's confidence in vaccine production and delivery capabilities in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic.
भारत में हमने आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान के तहत एक व्यापक रिफॉर्म प्रोसेस शुरू किया है। यह कैंपेन इस विषय पर आधारित है कि एक सेल्फ रिलायंट और रेजिलिएंट भारत पोस्ट कोविड अर्थव्यवस्था के लिए फोर्स मल्टीप्लायर हो सकता है और ग्लोबल वैल्यू चेन्स में एक मजबूत योगदान दे सकता है। इसका उदाहरण हमने कोविड के दौरान भी देखा, जब भारतीय फार्मा उद्योग की क्षमता के कारण हम 150 से अधिक देशों को आवश्यक दवाइयां भेज पाए। जैसा मैंने पहले भी कहा है, हमारी वैक्सीन उत्पादन और डिलीवरी क्षमता भी इस तरह मानवता के हित में काम आएगी।
В нынешних условиях крайне востребована работа нового банка развития. На борьбу с пандемией банком зарезервировано $10 миллиардов. В целом же портфель инвестиционных проектов к настоящему времени превышает $20 миллиардов.
India hopes its 5 locally tested vaccines will help it to control COVID-19, as those developed by Pfizer and Moderna may not be available in big quantities soon. The 5 candidates include Russia's Sputnik V, whose Phase 2 going to Phase 3 trials in India will start soon in collaboration with Dr. Reddy's laboratories. The other experimental vaccines are the one being developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University, which is being manufactured by the Serum Institute of India, Bharat Biotech and the Indian government's Covaxin. Zydus Cadilla's Zycovid-D and the last one being developed by Biological E Limited alongside Baylor College of Medicine and Dynavax Technologies Corp.
ये बताते हुए प्रसन्नता है कि जो स्पुतनिक 5 रशियन वैक्सीन है, जो हमारा डॉक्टर रेड्डीज लेबोरेटरी के साथ कोलैबोरेशन में आगे बढ़ रहा है, उसकी भी ट्रायल की फेज 2 गोइंग टू फेज 3 इकट्ठा ट्रायल जो उसकी परमिशन उनको मिली है, उसका काम भी पूरी तैयारी हो गई है और जल्द ही जल्द सेक्रेटरी साहब बता रहे थे कि अगले हफ्ते तक वो भी ट्रायल इस धरती पर शुरू हो जाएगा।
The country of 1.35 billion people, India has reported 8.87 million infections, second only to the United States, and 130,519 deaths as a result of COVID-19. As the BRICS countries have agreed to cooperate with each other to develop a vaccine for COVID-19, a new hope emerges to effectively fight against the deadly virus.
Moving on, as Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf emerges as the single largest party in Legislative Assembly elections held in illegally occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, the political parties as well as locals hit the streets alleging that the polls were rigged. They say that the entire political machinery, including Prime Minister Imran Khan himself, has been working overtime to bring his own party into power. We bring you a report.
As the results go in favour of Prime Minister Imran Khan-led Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf in occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, other political parties have hit the streets claiming the polls are rigged. Elections were held on 23 seats of the Legislative Assembly on November 15. PTI emerged as the leading party after it bagged 9 Legislative Assembly seats. The PPP came in second by securing 3 seats, while the PMLN secured 2 seats. 7 seats went to independent candidates who are expected to play an important role in the formation of the next GP government. Several political parties accused the PTI of rigging the elections and threatened to continue protests.
हम हुकूमत के वक्त का भी एहतराम करते हैं, मगर जो जुल्म हमारे साथ करेगा उस जुल्म के मुकाबले में हम डट जाएंगे, हम मर जाएंगे। आज हमारे साथ प्री पोल रिगिंग के जरिए हमारे मैंडेट को चुराया गया है। जिस अंदाज से चुराया गए हैं वो पूरा रियासती इदारों को भी पता है, इंतजामिया को भी पता है। हम आज इंतबा करना चाहते हैं, अगर हमें 1 महीना भी यहाँ धरना देना हो और जब तक हमें इंसाफ नहीं मिलेगा हम रोजाना धरना देंगे।
इन्होंने तमाम प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर को बुला के रिजल्ट चेंज किया, जिसका चेंज करने के बाद 2 वोट से हमें हरा रहे हैं। इनको शर्म नहीं आती, फिर भी पोस्टल बैलेट पेपर क्यों नहीं काउंट कर रहे हैं? ये इसलिए कि वहाँ उनकी पोस्टल बैलेट पेपर जितने कैंडिडेट हैं उन सब का हिसाब करो तो आज हमारी लीड है, उसमें भी हमारे पास रिकॉर्ड मौजूद है। जितना हमने पोस्टल बैलेट पेपर हमने जमा कराए हैं इनके पास, हमारे पास रिकॉर्ड मौजूद है। इनको खौफ ये है कि कहीं पोस्टल बैलेट पेपर हिसाब करे फिर भी ये ना जीत जाए, इसलिए वो यहाँ से भाग गए हैं।
2 former chief ministers, PMLS Hafizur Rahman and PPA's Syed Mehdi Shah, have lost their battles.
गिलगित बल्तिस्तान के इलेक्शंस में धांधली हुई, यानी 3 हलके ऐसे हैं जहां से बॉक्सेस जो थे, पोलिंग बॉक्सेस वोट वाले, वो ही चोरी कर लिए गए। और बिलावल भुट्टो और मरियम नवाज जो हैं 2 बड़े लीडर पाकिस्तान के, उन्होंने इन इंतखाबात के नतायज को तस्लीम करने से यकसर इनकार कर दिया है। और बिलावल भुट्टो ने तो यहाँ तक कहा है कि जब तक हमारी 3 जीती हुई सीटें जिनको इन्होंने धांधली से हरवाया है वो हमें वापस नहीं मिलती, हम गिलगित बल्तिस्तान से नहीं जाएंगे। तो ये है पाकिस्तान की एक गासिब हुकूमत की सरपरस्ती में होने वाले एक स्याह इंतखाबात।
The elections were held amidst relentless protests by the people of Gilgit-Baltistan against the Pakistan government's illegal occupation in the region.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
China has signed 201 cooperation agreements for the construction of the Belt and Road Initiative with 138 countries and dozens of international organizations, while trade and investment has continued to increase along the route this year. China's total trade imports and exports with Belt and Road countries in the first 3 quarters of this year hit $963.42 billion, seeing a growth rate of 0.8 percentage points higher than with countries outside of the initiative. Non-financial direct investment reached over $13 billion, a year-on-year increase of almost 30%, according to National Development and Reform Commission. As of November 5th, a total of 10,180 freight trains have travelled between China and Europe this year, reaching a total of 92 cities in 21 countries, exceeding last year's total count. Since the beginning of this year, nearly 8 million medical supply items totaling more than 60,000 tons have been transported through these routes, which serve as a channel of life in the China-Europe cooperation against COVID-19. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach concluded his two-day visit to Tokyo by visiting the national stadium and encouraging the world's athletes to get vaccinated against COVID-19 to demonstrate solidarity with their Japanese host. Bach's visit, his first since the decision to postpone the Games in March, has been upbeat throughout, and he has spoken about the great impact a vaccine could have on Tokyo's ability to host the Olympics next year. During a visit to the athletes' village earlier, Bach repeated that athletes would not be forced to get a vaccination but suggested that they should get it for the sake of others. More than 11,000 athletes are expected to descend upon Tokyo for the Olympics, which begin on July 23rd, with thousands more coming for the subsequent Paralympics. However, when pressed whether athletes were going to jump the queue to get any potential vaccine before the Games, Bach was adamant this wouldn't be the case. Chinese President Xi Jinping called for stronger policy coordination among international committees, saying globalization is irreversible and that China will not engage in decoupling. Xi made the comments in a keynote speech delivered via video at the APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Corporation, CEO Dialogues ahead of a leaders' virtual summit on the future of international cooperation. The Chinese president also said China is determined to open its economy and will take part in more international trade agreements 1 week after 15 countries, which include a dozen of APEC countries, signed a Beijing-backed Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which exclude the United States. A ministerial statement outlined the need for members to uphold free and fair and non-discriminatory trade practices to drive economic recovery from the pandemic, aside from implementing structural reforms in order to promote sustainable and inclusive growth.
In Orthodox Afghan society, women were hardly allowed to engage in art and culture. After over 2 decades of end of Taliban rule, they still face challenges of free speech. Despite all hardships, the women in war-ravaged Afghanistan are trying to showcase their talent. Let's meet young female artist who has opened an art gallery in Kabul.
At a small gallery in Kabul, this lady carefully dips a brush in paint before applying it to a felt canvas propped upon an easel. Meet 27-year-old Faika Sultani, who had previously studied art at universities in Kabul and India and also worked in fashion. But she had been feeling depressed due to being out of work for nearly 2 months, a problem made worse by the coronavirus lockdown earlier this year, until she joined art enterprise Namad Company about a month ago. Painting profession has helped her make ends meet amid the pandemic.
ضربه‌ای که قرنطینه بر ما زد باعث شد که ما یکم افسردگی خاطر پیدا بکنه و جدا از اینکه بود اقتصادیش باشه ما بیشتر روح روان ما یکم خسته‌تر شده بود در خانه شیشته. اما باز با آمدن در نمد و نقاشی کردن روی نمد باعث شد که ما یکم روح روان ما تازه تر شود و به زندگی نرمال ما یکم امیدوار شویم.
Faika hopes to motivate women of her generation to take bold paths and show the world another facade of Afghanistan, a brighter and peaceful nation. She has sold dozens of paintings so far, ranging between $100 and $200 each, and largely through word of mouth.
در کل وقت من نقاشی میکنم از بروز احساساتم روی کنوس یا روی کاغذ یا نمد فرق نمیکنه، لذت میبرم و نقاشی روی نمد برای من این نشان میده که ما میتونیم سنت قدیم دوباره زنده بسازیم و بر مردم نشان بدیم که ما میتونیم از داشته‌های افغانی خودمون استفاده بکنیم و زندگی خودمان را رنگی‌تر و زیباتر بسازیم.
Bogged down by the coronavirus, Sultani joined 21-year-old Marzia Panahi, who set up the Namad Gallery at the height of the pandemic in September.
مردم افغانستان با نمد یک ریشه تاریخی و فرهنگی داره که در طی خیلی سالیان گذشته قرنها مردم افغانستان در هر گوشه و کنار این کشور مصروف تولید نمد بودن و امروزه تولید نمد کاهش پیدا کرده به خاطر از اینکه خریدار تولیدات داخلی کمتر هستن و ما خواستیم که روی نمد یک بحث جدیدی را مطرح بکنیم که اون نقاشی هست. ما بتونیم نمد را از طریق دیگری وارد خانه های مردم کنیم. اگر که اونا مایل نیستن که به عنوان فرش از نمد استفاده کنن، پس میتونن به عنوان تابلو از نمد حمایت بکنن.
Though the Taliban say they have changed, their public statements on women's rights have been vague and many have raised concerns. However, the situation has improved significantly in the recent past due to the infusion of billions of dollars in international support and remittances from Afghan immigrants.
And finally, it's a festival season in South Asia, and people are celebrating these events with all precautions due to ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. In India and neighboring Nepal, the Hindu community celebrated a series of festivals, Diwali, Bhai Dooj and Chhath Puja. Let's take a look at how the pandemic fails to dampen the spirit of these festivals. Wearing colourful traditional outfits, people in India celebrated the Festival of Lights Diwali amid the coronavirus pandemic. People decorated their homes with lights, earthen lamps and offered prayers. Diwali is celebrated with great fervour in India and other parts of the world as it marks the return of Hindu Lord Ram to Ayodhya after 14 years of exile, defeating demon king Ravan, the powerful king of Lanka. It symbolizes the victory of righteousness over evil and the lifting of spiritual darkness. According to the Hindu mythology, it is also celebrated in honor of Lakshmi, the Hindu goddess of wealth and prosperity.
इस समय चूँकि वातावरण काफ़ी ख़राब है, काफ़ी लोग परेशान हैं इस चीज़ से, काफ़ी हॉस्पिटलाइज्ड हैं, पर भी अपना त्यौहार इतना पुराना है, पूरी निराशा नहीं रख सकते हम, तो बड़ी सादगी और सतर्कता से इसको मना रहे हैं हम लोग। दिवाली मेला वगैरह इस साल हम लोग कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं, बस रोशनी कर रहे हैं और लोगों को विशेष दे रहे हैं।
अपनी अपनी खुशी को प्रकट कर रहे हैं। जहां तक गो ग्रीन दिवाली है उसका भी ध्यान रखा जा रहा है, लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम भगवान श्री रामचंद्र जी महाराज का स्वागत हो रहा है।
In Nepal, the occasion is called Tihar, a 5-day-long festival. Known as the Festival of Lights, Tihar is the second biggest festival in the Himalayan nation. During the festival, people decorate their homes with a variety of colorful lights and the sky is filled with spectacular fireworks at night. On the eve of Tihar, people honor crows, dogs, cows, as well as Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and luck. Each day of Tihar festival has its own significance. The first day of Tihar is to worship crows, the messenger of death. People often sprinkle rice on the ground for crows pecking. The second day of Tihar is to honor dogs, the guardian for the god of death. The third day is welcome the goddess of Lakshmi. The fourth day is to thank cows. The fifth and the last day is Bhai Tika. On this day, sisters offer Tika to their brothers, wishing them happiness, long life and prosperity. Brothers, in return, pledge to protect their sisters from all kinds of adversities.
आफन्तजनहरू सबै रेस्पेक्टेड सबै व्यक्तित्वहरूसँग छौं। समग्रमा आज चाहिँ हामीले दिदीको हातबाट टीका लगाई एउटा सुख, स्वास्थ्य, समृद्धि, दीर्घायु, उल्लासमय एउटा सुख शान्तिको कामना सहित शुभ होस् भन्दै दीपावलीको हार्दिक मङ्गलमय शुभकामना।
In India and Nepal, the pious festival of Chhat Puja was also celebrated, where devotees took a holy dip and performed rituals. Chhat is considered as one of the most significant and auspicious festivals of the Indian states of Bihar, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh and neighbouring Nepal. The pandemic failed to dampen the spirits of festivals, as it not only brings people closer but also create a good bond of humanity in the society. It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Yeshi signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.